Hey guys, so welcome back. Today we're covering Chapter 6, Lesson 6.3 on generating equivalent fractions by dividing. Now we're on Chapter 6 of the Florida's Best Math. If you remember yesterday's video, when we did 6.2, we sort of touched upon the subject. Mostly 6.2 was using multiplication, however, 6.3 is using division. So the learning target of this lesson is to use division to find equivalent fractions. The success criteria is I can find the factors of a number, I can find the common factors of a numerator and a denominator, and I can divide to find equivalent fractions. So let's take a look at the Explore. Shade the second model in each pair to show an equivalent fraction and then write the fraction. If we look at example 1, here we have 4/6, but if you notice we're working the opposite. Yesterday's lesson was if I had one fraction here, I had to go to the second one to figure out how did I get this denominator, and then it would be this times this. So for the purpose of 6.3, we would have to think of it like this instead. If I had 4/6 and they're giving me the second fraction with a denominator of 3, I have to think now 6 divided by what number gives me 3? And that would be 2. So if I divide 6 by 2, that gives me 3. If I divide the denominator by 2, I'm also going to divide the numerator by that same digit. In this case, I would then do 4 divided by 2 would be 2. If I wanted to check my answer to make sure that I am correct, that the answer is 2/3, then I could do multiplication, which is what we learned yesterday. 2 times 2 and 3 times 2 should give us 4/6. 2 times 2 is 4 and 3 times 2 is 6. So my answer checks out. Now let's take a look at the second one. The second one, you have 8/12 equals to how many thirds? So if I look over here as to how many thirds, I would have to do the same thing. I would have to divide 12 divided by a number will then give me 3. In this case, this number is 4, and therefore 8 is also going to be divided by 4, and 8 divided by 4 is going to give me 2. So my answer is 2/3. Now, let's go back to the first example. Your question might be, well, how, in other words, if I have 4/6, here I have 2/3, so I have to show that model as 2 shaded out of 3. Now, if you wanted to test it out, if I drew a line down the middle, this image now looks just like that model. So that's why I know it is equivalent. Let's go over here. We said we had 8/12, but now we have 2/3. Same situation. If I were to color in 2/3 here, and then I were to fraction my model off just like the one before it, it would look exactly the same. Therefore, I know that these are equal. In other words, 8/12 is equivalent to 2/3. And boys and girls, this is how we use division. Now, let's go ahead and go to our building of understanding. Divide to find equivalent fractions. It says a factor that is shared by 2 or more numbers is a common factor. Now remember, what are factors? Factors are the numbers that we multiply together that will then give me my multiple. So I need to find an equivalent fraction for 8/12. The common factors of 8 and 12 are, for 8, 1, 2, 4, and 8. Let me break that down a little bit more. In other words, if I have 8, what gives me 8? Let's write those down. 1 times 8 and 2 times 4. If I put all those numbers in order, what do I get? A 1, a 2, a 4, and a 8. Exactly what this says. If I were to look at 12, I would then have, for example, okay, if I were to look at 12, I would have 1 times 12. Then I would have 2 times 6, right? Then I would have 3 times 4. And if I were to put all these numbers or factors in order, I would then have a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, a 6, and a 12, just like it is here. Now, common factors are the ones that repeat. So let's take a look at all the numbers that repeat. In this case, 1 repeats, 2 repeats, and 4 repeats. In other words, I have a 1 here and here, a 2 here and here, a 4 here and a 4 here. I do not have a 3 here. I do not have a 6 here. And I do not have a 12 here. So 3, 6, and 12 are not factors of 8 because I don't multiply any of those numbers by any other number that will then give me 8. So I need to find an equivalent fraction. To find an equivalent fraction, divide the numerator and the denominator by any of its common factors other than 1. That's a really important one. We don't divide by 1, okay? Because remember, we're really starting at any other number but 1, okay? So again, to find an equivalent fraction, divide the numerator and the denominator by any of its common factors other than 1. So, just like we had here, I had to figure out what number I would have to divide the 8 by. Now, remember, we said the numbers that repeated were 1, 2, and 4. Well, I can't divide it by 1. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide it by its greatest common factor. I'm going to go ahead, which is the greatest number, the 2 or the 4? It's the 4. So I'm really going to divide 8 divided by 4 and 12 divided by 4. Okay? So there. If I divide 8 divided by 4, what do I get? I get 2. If I divide 12 divided by 4, I get 3. Right. Now, I want to verify that you understand what I just did here. I used the greatest common factor so that I don't have to keep dividing, so that in other words, I can simplify this fraction and I am done. Now, just because I got 2/3, I know it doesn't match this image, but I just wanted to show you, okay, because it's not wrong. You're just simplifying the fraction. So now I'm going to go ahead and do it the way that the book is explaining it. Instead of using again, I'm going to put a 1, a 2, and a 4. We're not going to use 1. I use the greatest common factor. Let's just use for the example, let's use the 2. I'll show you why I'm using the 2. And yes, again, I could have used the 4. 8 divided by 2 is 4. 12 divided by 2 is 6. If I look at this fraction, it matches this image right here. This is 4 out of 6. Now, I could say that 4 out of 6 is equal to 8/12. Okay? What I was explaining was that I could also break this down again because we have, first of all, 2 even numbers. And I know that 4 and 6 have common factors. So I could divide more. If I wanted to, I can divide more. But that's fine. We went ahead and we matched it to this model. So that's fine as well. Okay? Let's go to the next one. Let's go to the try it. Okay. List the common factors of the numerator and the denominator. So first of all, let's start with the 3. Let's say, what gives me 3? 1 times 3. What gives me 9? 1 times 9. And 3 times 3. Let's put the factors in order. 1 and 3. Let's put the factors in order. 1, 3, and 9. Which number repeats? The 3 here and the 3 here, and that's the number that I'm going to use. So if I had 3/9 and I divide both numbers by this 3 that we chose, that's the common factor, by 3, remember we don't use 1, then my fraction is going to be 1/3. Okay, I broke it down using division. I did a little bit more. For this case, we just need to list the common factors of the numerator and the denominator. So the common factors are 1 and 3, and we divided by 3. Let's take a look at number 2, 10/20. So think again, what are the factors of what gives me 10? 1 times 10 and 2 times 5. Let's put those numbers in order. 1, 2, 5, and 10. Let's put the 20 now. 1 times 20, 2 times 10, 4 times 5. Let's put those numbers in order. 1, 2, 4, 5, 10, and 20. What numbers repeat? The 2 repeats. The 1 does repeat. The 1. So let's write those down. 1, then 2. Let's go back. Is there a 4? There's a 4 here. Is there a 4 here? Nope. There's a 5 here, and there's a 5 here. So let's put 5. There's a 10 here, and there's a 10 here. So then let's put 10. There is no 20 up here. So the common factors are 1, 2, 5, and 10. If I wanted to break down 10/20 to its lowest form, I would then choose one of these numbers, right? Then I could divide by. I could divide by 2, I could divide by 5, or I could divide by 10. Now, the only difference is we're just dividing. Right now, we're not looking for greatest common factor or least common factor. So for this case, let's use, I know I can't use 1. Let's use the least common factor. The smallest factor is 2. So I'm going to divide both the numerator by 2, the denominator by 2. That's going to give me 5 as a numerator, and that's going to give me 10 as a denominator. So I just divided it, and I got 5/10, which is equivalent to 10/20. And the common factor I used was 2 as the least common factor. It's the smallest. Okay? Now, and again, no, I did not simplify. I could keep dividing it because I could divide this by 5, but we just stopped there. So let's look over here. Find an equivalent fraction. Same thing. Let's find the factors of 3. Well, we kind of have them up here. The factors of 3 are, let's go ahead and do it anyways. We have 1 times 3. It's a prime number. For 6, we have 1 times 6, and we have 2 times 3. So we need to find the factors. I have 1 and 3, and here I have 1, 2, 3, and 6. What number repeats? I have 3, and I have 3. I don't have any, I can't use 1, so I could use 3. So that's the one that I'm going to use. I'm going to use 3. 3 divided by 3 is 1. 6 divided by 3 is 2. So what's an equivalent fraction of 3 over 6? 1/2. Let's move on to number 4. Here we go. Same situation. If I have 20, what gives me 20? 1 times 20, 2 times 10, 4 times 5. Let's put those numbers in order. I get 1, I get 2, 4, 5, 10, and 20. Now, if I do 8, let's do 8. 1 times 8 and 2 times 4. Let's put those numbers in order. I have 1, 2, 4, 8. Now I choose a number that they both have in common. Let's see, they have a 2. I see a 4. There's no 8. A 1, the 1 we can't use. So I could either use a 2 or a 4. So let's go ahead and just, I could just use a 2 or a 4. So I'm going to go ahead and use the 4. I'm going to put a 4 here and a 4 here. 20 divided by 4 is 5. And 8 divided by 8 divided by 4 is 2. So 20 over 8 is equal to 5 over 2. And those are also equivalent fractions using division. Okay? Here we go. Let's do a few more examples. Let's look at question 8. Find the equivalent fraction. Again, if I have a 6 here, what did I need to divide the 6 by to get that 3? I needed to divide the 6 by a 2. So I'm also going to divide the 2 by the 2, which that's going to give me 1. And that's it. Over here, what did I divide the 16 by to get 4? I divided the 16 by 4. That gave me this 4. So that means I can only then divide the 12 by the 4 as well. That's going to give me 3. The answer then would be 4/3. If I look at question 10, same thing. In order for me to have 100 or to have a 10 here, I needed to divide 100 divided by 10 equals 10. So then that means that I needed to divide 80 by 10 as well. And that's going to give me 8. Okay, remember what we get when we look at mixed numbers. We keep the whole number. Let's focus on the fraction. Well, let's see. I wonder what this could have been. Because if I have 8/16, I need to figure out, what would I need to figure out? I would have to figure out 16 divided by what number would then give me the number that I am missing. So I want you to go ahead and try and solve that equation. I'm going to go ahead and give you a few more minutes. All right, so let's see if you figured this one out. Well, let's see. If I divide 8 divided by 8, what do I get? I get 1, right? So that means if I divided 8 by 8, then I'm going to have to divide 16 by 8 as well. That's going to give me my missing digit. My missing digit was 2. So that means that 8/16 are equal to a half. Okay, well, you could also have, if you looked at the actual fraction, you could have noticed that what is half of 16? 8 is half of 16. So then you should already know that that should have been a half. Okay. Let's take a look at number 13. In order to have a 6, I have a 2 here. I would have had to divide 6 by 3 to get that 2. So I have to divide the 30 by 3 as well. 30 divided by 3 is going to give me 10. So my equivalent fraction is 10/2. Now, the point on the number line, it says find an equivalent fraction for the point on the number line. Well, let's see. It's divided into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I need to find out what fraction can or is equivalent to that fraction. Well, there's a couple of things that I can do for that one specifically. I could use multiplication as a review of yesterday. So, because they're not giving me, in other words, the number line is divided into eighths. So this is 6/8. And it just says to find an equivalent fraction for the point on the number line. So in this case, I can take 6/8. If I had 6/8 and I wanted to use division, let's find the common factors. The common factors of 6 are 1 times 6 and 2 times 3. The common, or the factors, of 8 are 1 times 8 and 2 times 4. Let's put these numbers in order. Let's see. I have a 1 over here. I have a 1, a 2, a 3, and a 6. Over here, I have a 1, a 2, a 4, and an 8. So using division, I'm going to say, well, all right, well, the 1 I can't use. There is no 3. There is no 6. There is no 4. And there's no 8. So it's the only number I can use is 2 here and 2 here. So you know what? It's even easier. I'm just going to go ahead and divide by 2. Divide by 2. And that's going to bring me 2. 6 divided by 2 is 3. Over. 8 divided by 2 is 4. That means an equivalent fraction would be 3 over 4. All right. Now, let's take a look at model real life. Newton hikes 80 miles of the Okeechobee section. Select all the fractions that represent the portion of the Okeechobee section that Newton hikes. So he hikes 80 miles of the Okeechobee section. The Okeechobee section is about 100 miles. And what he does is that he hikes 80 miles of that. So, what are all the fractions that could represent that? Well, I know for sure he did 80 out of 100. So now we're going to have to do some work here. If I did 80 out of 100, we could do all the common factors, or a very quick one that we could do is if we take off a tenth, we could actually just remove the last 2 zeros. We just took off a tenth. What does that leave us with? That leaves us with 8 tenths. So it could be 8. Now I can find the common factors. So for 8, I have 1 times 8, and I have 2 times 4. And then for 10, I have 1 times 10, and then I have 2 times 5. So if I look at the ones that repeat, I know that I have the 2 here and the 2 here. So I'm going to divide both numbers by 2 and by 2. That's going to give me 4/5. So 4/5 will be my next option. So what fractions are equivalent? 80 over 100 is equivalent to 8 tenths, who's then also equivalent to 4/5. A, B, and C are all equivalent to the original fraction, which is 80 over 10. Now, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and please remember to subscribe to stay up to date with my current lessons, my current videos. Bye.